Ada Lovelace, the woman who imagined computers before they existed. In a quiet Victorian room filled with ink, paper, and the ticking of mechanical gears, a young woman imagined the future. Not just any future, but ours. Long before glowing screens, smartphones, or artificial intelligence, Ada Lovelace saw something no one else could. That machines might one day think, create, and even compose music. In 1843, she wrote what is now considered the first computer program. Nearly a century before the first real computer was built. How did a woman in a rigid 19th century society come to imagine the digital world? Her story begins with contradiction. A child of poetry and logic. Ada Lovelace was born in 1815, the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron. Her mother, determined to keep her grounded in reason, raised Ada on mathematics and science. But Ada did not reject imagination. She fused it with logic. She called this approach poetical science, a way of thinking that blended creativity with mathematics. Even as a child, she showed this rare combination. At 12, she designed a flying machine, and even wrote a small book about it titled Flyology, carefully studying bird anatomy, materials, and flight mechanics with almost scientific obsession. She wasn't choosing between art and science. She was inventing a new way to think. The machine that was more than a machine. When Ada met Charles Babbage, she encountered a device that seemed almost magical. But to understand her breakthrough, we must understand two different machines. The difference engine versus the analytical engine. The difference engine, a powerful calculator. It could compute specific mathematical tables, but only what it was built to do. The analytical engine, something entirely new, a general-purpose machine that could follow instructions using punch cards, similar to those used in Jacquard looms. This difference is everything. Most people saw a better calculator. Ada saw the first true computer. She even described it with a metaphor that still echoes today. The analytical engine weaves algebraic patterns just as a loom weaves flowers. That single idea bridged textiles and technology, turning machinery into something programmable. The first algorithm, inside Note G. In 1843, Ada translated a technical paper about the analytical engine written by Luigi Menabrea. But she did far more than translate. Her notes were not just additions, they were the main event. In fact, they were nearly 3 times longer than the original paper, transforming her role from translator into the primary thinker behind the work. In Note G, she described a process for calculating Bernoulli numbers, an advanced mathematical sequence used in trigonometry and number theory, far beyond simple arithmetic. But this was not just math. It was structure. What made it revolutionary? She outlined step-by-step instructions, what we now call an algorithm, for a machine to follow. She used repeated operations, what we now call loops. She described logical flow, similar to modern if-then conditions. This wasn't a simple list. It was the architecture of software. The Bernoulli sequence itself was mathematically demanding, heavyweight math, proving the machine could handle far more than basic arithmetic. In other words, Ada didn't just show that the machine could work. She showed how far it could go. The leap, from numbers to symbols. Here is where Ada changed history. Others believed machines could only process numbers. Ada realized something deeper. Numbers could represent anything: music, letters, logic. If that were true, then machines could manipulate not just quantities, but ideas. She imagined a machine composing music if the rules were encoded. This was the birth of a new concept: computation, not calculation. The first debate about artificial intelligence. Ada also asked a question that still shapes modern technology. Can machines truly think? Her answer was cautious. She argued that machines could not originate anything, they only follow instructions. This idea later became known as the Lovelace objection. More than a century later, Alan Turing challenged this view while developing early computer theory. And today, with modern generative AI capable of writing stories, creating images, and composing music, the debate is more alive than ever. Are machines truly creative, or are they simply reflecting human input in increasingly complex ways? Ada's question remains open, and that may be her most enduring contribution. A partnership of friction and brilliance. Ada and Babbage were not just collaborators, they were opposites. Babbage, the inventor, focused on mechanics. Ada, the visionary, focused on meaning. He built the machine. She imagined its future. Their partnership was powerful, but not always smooth. When publishing their work, Babbage attempted to insert his own unsigned statement into her paper. Ada refused and defended her authorship. This moment matters. It shows she was not just assisting, she was leading intellectually. Against the limits of her time. Ada's achievements become even more remarkable when we consider her world. In the 1800s, women were excluded from major scientific institutions. Many published under pseudonyms or initials. Advanced education for women in mathematics was rare. Ada herself signed her work simply as AAL. Yet despite these barriers, she produced one of the most important scientific texts of her century. A World Not Yet Ready. The analytical engine was never built. Her ideas had nowhere to live. For decades, her work remained a forgotten blueprint. But when computers finally emerged in the 20th century, her notes were rediscovered, and suddenly, they made sense. She had not been wrong. She had been early. Then and now, a bridge across time. What Ada imagined in brass and gears now exists in silicon and code. But the structure remains strikingly familiar. Her analytical engine included a memory system she called the store, much like today's RAM or hard drives. At its core was the mill, a central unit that performed calculations. An early version of what we now call the CPU or GPU. Instructions were fed into the machine using punched cards. Just as modern computers receive input through keyboards, touchscreens, or sensors. And where her machine would print results or ring bells, ours display images, play sound, and even generate human-like speech. The materials have changed, the logic has not. A short life, a lasting impact. Ada Lovelace died at just 36 years old. She never saw a computer. But computers, in a way, are built on her vision. In the 1970s, the U.S. Department of Defense created a programming language named Ada. Not simply as a tribute, but as a reflection of the precision and complexity she championed. It was designed for high-stakes systems like aviation, where logic must be flawless. Today, her legacy lives on in technology, education, and the growing presence of women in STEM. The woman who saw the future. Ada Lovelace lived in a world of gears and candlelight. Yet she imagined music from machines, logic from symbols, creativity from code. She did not just predict computers. She predicted what they could mean. And that is far rarer. Because technology changes fast, but the ability to imagine its future? That is timeless.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Rigid. Definition: very strict and not flexible, not willing to change. Example: the school had rigid rules, and students had to follow them exactly. 2. Contradiction. Definition: a situation where two ideas or facts are opposite or do not agree. Example: it is a contradiction to say you love something but never use it. 3. Grounded in reason. Definition: based on logic and clear thinking, not emotion. Example: her decision was grounded in reason, so she thought carefully before choosing. 4. Fused. Definition: joined or combined together into one. Example: the artist fused music and painting to create something new. 5. Anatomy. Definition: the study of the body and how its parts are formed. Example: she studied bird anatomy to understand how wings work. 6. Loom. Definition: a machine used to make cloth by weaving threads together. Example: the worker used a loom to create beautiful fabric. 7. Unsigned statement. Definition: a written message or opinion that has no name attached to it. Example: the letter was an unsigned statement, so no one knew who wrote it. 8. Pseudonyms. Definition: fake names used by people instead of their real names. Example: some writers use pseudonyms to hide their identity. 9. Championed. Definition: strongly supported or defended something. Example: she championed the idea of equal education for everyone. 10. Aviation. Definition: the activity of flying aircraft like planes. While this definition is correct, flying aircraft, but in Ada's specific case, it's worth noting she was thinking about steam-powered flight and mechanical wings. Since planes didn't exist in 1828, she was essentially imagining the prehistory of aviation. Example: he studied aviation because he wanted to become a pilot. 11. STEM. Definition: subjects related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Example: many students choose STEM subjects to work in technology jobs.
Comprehension questions. 1. Who was Ada Lovelace? Answer: Ada Lovelace was a 19th-century mathematician and writer, who was often considered the first computer programmer. 2. What was unique about Ada's upbringing? Answer: her mother emphasized mathematics and logic, to prevent her from becoming like her poetic father, Lord Byron. 3. What did Ada mean by poetical science? Answer: it was her idea of combining imagination with logical thinking and mathematics. 4. What was flyology? Answer: it was a book Ada wrote as a child about her ideas for designing a flying machine. 5. Who was Charles Babbage? Answer: he was a mathematician and inventor who designed early mechanical computing machines, including the analytical engine. 6. What is the main difference between the difference engine and the analytical engine? Answer: the difference engine was a fixed-purpose calculator, while the analytical engine was a general-purpose machine that could follow instructions. 7. What inspired the design of the analytical engine's input system? Answer: it was inspired by punched cards used in jacquard looms for weaving patterns. 8. What did Ada Lovelace do with Luigi Menabrea's paper? Answer: she translated it and added extensive notes that were 3 times longer than the original paper. 9. Why are Ada's notes so important? Answer: they contained original ideas, including the first published algorithm and insights into how computers could work. 10. What is an algorithm? Answer: an algorithm is a step-by-step set of instructions used to solve a problem or perform a task. 11. What were Bernoulli numbers, and why are they important in her work? Answer: they are complex mathematical numbers used in advanced math, showing that the machine could handle more than simple calculations. 12. What was Ada's major insight about computers? Answer: she realized that computers could process not just numbers, but any kind of information, such as music or symbols. 13. What is the Lovelace objection? Answer: it is her idea that machines cannot truly think or create on their own, they only follow instructions. 14. What challenges did Ada face as a woman in the 19th century? Answer: women were excluded from scientific societies, had limited education opportunities, and often had to publish under initials. 15. Why is Ada Lovelace still important today? Answer: she predicted modern computing and programming concepts long before computers existed, influencing technology and inspiring women in STEM.